progress in Italian cycling being stamped today on the Fleche Wallonne. 204 kilometres, 128 miles and just 16 kilometres left to go. These three men, they found themselves clear, they looked at each other and they decided to go for it, and they're hovering at around about a minute, minute and a half all of the time. The man of the Belgian Ardennes, Moreno Argentin, 33 years of age, now riding his last season. Jojo Furlan, winner of Milan-San Remo, and little Evgeny Berzin, who rode so well in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. He's now a star of the future. Three generations almost represented in this breakaway. Latest check coming down just a little bit, a minute and 24 seconds. We go back out onto the main road, heading now towards the Belgian borders with Holland. The River Meuse on the left becomes the Maas when it crosses over the borders, and the three leaders now hovering at that leader around about 80 seconds. It's going to be touch and go. They've still got to come the climb of the Côte d'Eref, and then they'll go along to the town of Huy, and they'll face the very sharp climb up to the finishing line. 20% or 1 in 5 is the gradient of the climb. It's just about a mile long, and they climb all of the way to the line. Well, the new team this year, the Gavis team from Italy, continuing a trend that has gone on right since the start of the season with the great success of the Italians. 14.8 kilometres to go. That's around about 9 miles to the finish. And little Evgeny Berzin setting the pace. He's still got his old pursuit style that took him to the World Pursuit Championship when he rode for the Soviet Union, when the World Championships were in Maebashi in Japan in 1990. And he just sits there. He rode them off his wheel in Liège-Bastogne-Liège the other day. And if he finishes in the first three today, he'll lift also the extra prize of winning the Ardennes Weekend Prize, when they used to run both of these events Saturday and Sunday. This is back to the chase group here, and this is Johan Museu. Museu really is doing all of the work, and I think he's trying to do it because he wants his teammates to get up there, and not least Marco Saligali, who's having a very good season. And also in this group we've got Cassani, David Cassani, also riding very, very well indeed. Mapai class have a couple of good men up here. There's Cassani going through the picture now. It's still quite a large field just here. It's thinned out a lot on the climbs, but it hasn't thinned out completely. But there's nobody seems to want to reshape the chase. They're leaving it all to GB, and if they do that, they know that Museu wants to get up there, sure. But if they keep on doing this, then they're going to give this race to the three boys from Gavis. And I can't remember a previous Fleche Wallonne, which started back in the 30s, that ever produced three riders of the same team crossing the line together. Well, there's the leaders now as they start one of the small climbs. There are 10 climbs throughout the Ardennes, most beautiful area of the Ardennes, the Côte d'Eref. 10% at its steepest point and 2.6 kilometres long. No Tony Rominger in the race today after his disappointment in Liège-Bastogne-Liège, but the question is, would he have won if he had not have had that puncture so near the end on the climb up to the finishing line? I somehow doubt it myself, but even so, he's now headed off to the start of the Tour of Spain, where he's hoping to repeat for the second time a victory there. So that'll give him 3 straight wins if he does that, and that'll be a record for Rominger, and hopefully it will stand him in good stead for a fine challenge in the Tour de France against Miguel Indurain. Indurain, of course, not riding his home tour. And this breakaway sharing the work equally together, doing long turns at the front, and if anything, Argentin, the captain, is doing fewer than the other two, but he's riding at the back and keeping an eye on them both. And I'm just wondering what will happen if they start to climb the Huy together, and whether indeed Berzin will do exactly what he did in Liège-Bastogne-Liège and dance away from the rest of the group. What a great double that would be. Moreno Argentin, who says that he will retire at the end of the season. Well, the World Championships are in his own country this year. He was the world champion when they were held in Colorado Springs in 1986. The same year, by the way, he won Liège-Bastogne-Liège for the second time. And in the same year too, he had 5 victories. Marvellous ride. He's had his high spots and his low spots. One of his high spots came with the pink jersey in the Tour of Italy last year. He held the lead for a few days before eventually it found its way to the shoulders of Miguel Indurain yet again. And there he is, this great Italian, and I suppose representing 3 generations of Italian cyclists here. Well, not Italian cyclists on the Italian team, because Berzin is the young man of the group, He is just 23 years of age. Then you go to Furlan, who's 28, and then we go to Grandad, who's a massive 33. There he is. This is Kasani. Now surely they must realise this is virtually the last part of the course where they'll get a real shot at those three leaders. The gap is going up a little bit. It's a minute 34, but they've got to react here. And it looks as though Kasani wants to do something about it. He wants the GB boys back in the action here, and this is Casagrande going through, Francesco Casagrande. And so the gaps are beginning to close a little bit. Stefano Della Santa went through. There's Claudio Chiappucci, Stefan Rooks, the gaps are forming. No sign of the world champion, Lance Armstrong, who was with this group. Big man, Franco Ballerini closing down the gap onto the wheel of Rooks. And there is Gianni Bugno through, and the number 21, there's Raul Alcala. So perhaps Alcala too is finding his form now in time for the upcoming stage races. Alcala will be spearheading along with Lance Armstrong, the Tour du Pont in the United States. Big legs here at Casagrande. And in fact Kasani wants a little bit of help. He's done his bit to try and liven them up, but there's not a big reaction coming through. Stefano Della Santa goes through, still feeling the chill winds blowing across the Ardennes here, with his legs on and his arm warmers. 2-1-2 is Raul Alcala. And then just popping into the picture here, Claudio Chiappucci. Ballerini, Ronan Pensek. And they're all scrabbling for wheels here at the moment. So it looks as though at last we've got a little bit of a reaction. Kasani's got to the back of the line. Kengi Alta is the rider just in front of him. He's the guard dog for the Gaviz team. He had his chance to go with the break. He saw it go and he couldn't quite get onto it. And then he fell back into this group. We now have the complete composition of the group here. Giovanetti is the other rider in this group, number 44. Bugno is here, still feeling fresh after his great victory in the Tour of Flanders, which is certainly a race very few Italians can ever say they've won. So the Mapai class team, even without their leader Tony Rominger, are having a good race in this chase group. Just over 8 kilometres left to go. It's around about 5 miles, so 4 miles to the climb of the Huy. There goes Pensek, followed by Kasani. And a very laid-back position there. The Mexican Raul Alcala seems to sit right back on his bike, long extension. And just a little tap on the backside there of Kengi Alta by the Mexican rider. He's probably just warning him where he was for the left-hand corner there. This is back up to the team time trial. I mean, Berzin must feel rather at home now. He was part of the Team Pursuit World Championship team in 1990. The track's a bit bigger. It's 204 kilometres today instead of the 4 kilometres he rode at the time, but even so, the feeling must be the same, riding in line with two teammates, and that wouldn't surprise me if they've trained this way together as well. Well, the gap, I think, on that climb had to come down to round about 30 seconds to give the chasers a chance to get up to these three riders. Pressure being applied at the front again, and it's Berzin now who's having to grit his teeth and hang on at the back, and it's in fact Giorgio Furlan who's reacting at the front. There must be a message coming up from the team manager here, which is probably going to say, listen, you're hovering at about a minute 15. If you crack now, they'll be on you. I think we're going to see a lot of Evgeny Berzin because he started to flower this year as a professional. He turned pro in 1993. And how the cycling scene has changed since the Soviet Union dissolved and disappeared and split up into its own nations again. We've seen so many young riders who once rode for the red flag now riding for themselves as professionals, and it's taken a couple of years to settle in, but they're coming through now. 6 kilometres to go. So 3.5 miles, 2.5 miles up to the actual climb, and that's Berzin who's now stretching them out again. A little bit drab today, the Ardennes. They can be very sunny, but usually at this time of the year it still looks a little bit like winter down here. But the roads are made for cycling. They run a lot of tourist competitions too, which cyclo-tourists enjoy, long rides such as Tilth-Bastogne-Tilth, which follows mainly the route of Liège-Bastogne-Liège. It's only slightly shorter. by about 30 kilometres, but he usually tracks about 8,000 to 9,000 riders in the summer. And there's Argentine riding out his last season, and still with the great legs he's had for so many years. He turned pro back at the end of 1980, so he's in his 14th season as a pro, which is tremendous. And I can remember back in 1990 he signed one of the richest contracts at the time, which was $400,000 to ride for Ariastea, a team which is sadly no longer part of the professional scene, but many of the riders still excelling as they spread themselves throughout the teams. And 118, so they're absolutely pegging now the chase group of Raul Alcala's group there, which we're not seeing anything of at the moment, I'm afraid. Our host TV cameras not cutting back to the chase, but the three leaders are not hesitating at all, and they're going to feel very, very confident now that as that gap has not come down for something like 25-30 kilometres significantly, then they know now that they can probably hold their own speed and just fight it out on the climb of the Muir de Huy. Superb crowd as ever on top of the hill. The one little restaurant on the summit, well, if you ever want to eat in it when the Fleche Wallonne is on, you need to get there pretty early. There's Gianni Bugno still trying to do something. David Castani, Claudio Chiappucci passing off to our right. And Ronan Pensek, well, they're still driving on. I think they've left it a little bit too late, I'm afraid. And this group to me looks as though it's thinned out too. Casagrande is still here, the other side of Bugno in the yellow. And Claudio Chiappucci should be feeling he can climb the hill well to get himself a nice finish at the top of it. So too Pensek, who once finished very high in the Tour de France, was coming back the next year to ride the Tour de France as a favourite, and fell off the roof of his house just before it started and broke his collarbone, and he didn't even manage to ride the Tour that second time out. But he'll be back again this year riding for the Nova Mai team. So if most of the work I feel is being done by Berzin, with the second most being done by Furlan, and the captain here in charge of the ship just sitting around at the back. He's just checking over his shoulder to make sure there's no sign of any more cars in the distance, but frankly there are still over a minute 18 back, so there won't be. This is the flat valley run now, which will take them into Huy, and then we'll make the turn up the climb. And it must be a great feeling. This has been a very, very daring escape indeed. And if three riders of the same team can crack a quality field like they've done today, then they really are the very, very best. Because mark my words, there's no way riders in this group would have allowed three men in the same coloured jersey to go clear if they could have done anything at all about it. And Bugno must be feeling a little bit annoyed with himself for allowing the breakaway to go. There's no question which riders had the form, Berzin and Furlan. Argentine was in that breakaway too at Liège-Bastogne-Liège. When he'd done his job over La Redoute, he was dropped, but he obviously has the form, and who knows, he may have dropped off to save that little bit of energy for today. He's always been known as the man of the Ardennes, 4 times winner of Liège-Bastogne-Liège, twice second and twice a winner of this race, Fleche Wallonne, looking for his hat-trick today. He's going to have a tough job though, up against his younger teammates. We're now into Huy, and the town watching to see if these three have survived. It was on the second climb of the climb up here where they went clear, and they've held them off ever since. Little look at the faces, not giving anything away at all, as we've now got Furlan setting the pace. I haven't seen Argentine up there for quite a long time. Argentine holding close order in second place. It's a very, very frightening start to the climb, the Muir de Huy. You make the turn and then you see the wall. 1 kilometre to go. Little steady climb, but it'll kick very shortly when they switch to the right. And Argentine is holding second place. Berzin pedaling a much slower gear and looking threatening there. Now we're making the turn. There's the gradient, 20% or 1 in 5, bringing him up only to 129 metres above sea level, about 400 feet. But it's the way it gets there so quickly. This is where it starts to really dig into the legs now, and it narrows down as we go round to the right, then it'll move round to the left. And it looks to me as though Berzan is planning to do something here. He's moving into sight. He knows the climb, but he can't make you move too early because it is an awful long way to the summit. So Berzan looking to be threatening. There's a chance to look at his cluster at the back there. It looks like he's riding a 21 or 22 back sprocket. He did have a 39 inside ring on. And in fact the other two are beginning to move away, and it's Argentine. Can you believe this? It's Argentine who's starting to go away, and Berzan, there's a gap there. If he doesn't grit his teeth and close it, he'll be gone. He's sitting down, he's pedaling a much lower gear than the others, and that's not a good sign now. In fact, Berzan seems to resign himself to third place. The winner of Liège-Bastogne-Liège has dropped off the back. He'll win the Ardennais weekend, that's for sure, and that's more money in the team pot. But it looks as though he's leaving his two senior men to go forward here, and it's Argentine at the front and Giorgio Furlan, the winner of Milan-San Remo. And now it looks as though Argentine, his face really is so calm, he's hardly making the effort here as he rides away. And look at the crowd of people, a little bit stunned I think to see three riders from the same team come back up here. And the GWIS team has annihilated Fleche Wallonne this year. What a marvellous job they've done about it as well. They broke away on this climb the second time up. Ken Gialta could have made it the first four. He fell back. And now can Moreno Argentine crown what is his final season with a classic victory? And I'm wondering, in fact, if Furlan will make any effort at all to stop him doing that. Berzan very concerned about the race behind now because his race is over. It's for third place or nothing for him. And a very steady climb too for Moreno Argentine. Well, I've never seen a rather stunned Belgian crowd like this before. They're politely applauding the three riders coming up for the Italian team. But I've seen scenes on this climb in the past where they've mobbed the riders on the way up. And they're watching now Moreno Argentine, a man they should know better than most Belgians on this climb, who's finished twice second in 1985 and 1988. He won the race in 1990 and 1991. And in fact, they've cheered an Italian winner up here for the last 4 years, and looks like being 5 years now. Claudio Chiappucci bringing the chase group up, got his rhythm going nicely, but he's too far down the climb. They won't close the gap now. It'll probably be down to around about 35 seconds by the finish. Argentine goes again, just as it looked as though Giorgio Furlan slipped the gear up a notch. Furlan still trying to hold his wheel, but you know Argentine has got all of the legs, and there's no reply from Furlan. Argentine wins it for the third time. Almost a casual crossing of the line too by Giorgio Furlan, the winner of Milan-San Remo. And they're going to mob Argentine now as Berzan will finish in third place. He's concerned about the chase. He's right off the power, and in fact the chase is not very far behind him. But Giorgio Furlan will finish second. Evgeny Berzan takes third place. And now the race behind, this is the main field also on the climb now. Erik Breukink in the champion of Holland's colours there, followed by Stefan Rooks, who fell back. This is the group that split up. In fact, there's a group in front of this fighting out the finish, as our camera's got himself caught up in the main pack coming up here on the climb. But somewhere up the front is definitely Gianni Bugno in that leading group, along with Raul Alcala. Alcala's right in front of me here now, so he's gone away from this group, Gianni Bugno, as they come up towards the line now. And this looks like Della Santa and Bugno. Della Santa, I think, is going to get it, but there's a kick there from Bugno. Della Santa keeping a wary eye on him, but Bugno is coming up, as in it looks as though Della Santa decided to go onto the wheel of Bugno. Bugno's come through, so Berzan is third, Bugno is fourth, Della Santa is fifth. They've got clear of that chase group on the climb itself, and Chiappucci giving best here to Francesco Casagrande. A victory for the third time, and he's had 2 second places as well. Moreno Argentine is going to say farewell to the sport with flying colours this year, but a 1-2-3 for his team. Then comes Gianni Bugno and Della Santa, followed by Casagrande. This has been a very memorable Fleche Wallonne. The Belgians may not like it, the Italians certainly will. It's their 5th straight victory in a row, and the first time I can remember 3 riders from the same team taking first, second and third. And I hope you've enjoyed being part of it. Remember, more good stuff still to come. We have the show of the Tour de France. Will Rominger beat Indurain this time? And the Tour of Italy as well. Until we meet again, I'm Phil Liggett saying goodbye.